In the year 2374, Earth's unexpected invitation to join the Galactic Council, the most powerful coalition of advanced civilizations across thousands of star systems, promised a future of peace, trade, and prosperity. But there was one catch that no one anticipated. Humanity was granted universal diplomatic immunity across the galaxy. At first, this privilege was seen as a puzzling gift. Why would such a young and untested species be afforded such protection? The answer lay in a tragic mistake made centuries before, when an alien envoy had been brutally executed for insulting a sacred tradition, sparking a galaxy-wide war. Now, humanity stood at the center of an interstellar web of politics, cultural clashes, and unexpected alliances. But as humans began to navigate the galaxy's complex social terrain, their immunity was tested, and not everyone was thrilled about it. Was humanity truly capable of becoming the galaxy's most unlikely peacemakers? Or was their immunity a ticking time bomb that could ignite the very chaos they were meant to prevent? With the galaxy on the brink of a new war, the fate of humanity's place in the Council hangs in the balance. In the year 2374, Earth is extended an unprecedented invitation to join the Galactic Council, a vast coalition of highly advanced civilizations that span across thousands of star systems. This council is a governing body that upholds the ideals of peace, trade, and mutual respect among its members. The council's core principles focus on maintaining galactic harmony through collaboration and cooperation, with members working together to address issues ranging from economic development to environmental sustainability. Earth's inclusion in the Council marks a monumental moment in human history. For centuries, humans had been isolated within their own solar system, with only limited knowledge of the broader universe. Their journey into the galactic community began with their technological advancements, particularly the development of space travel capable of crossing vast distances between star systems. However, humanity's sudden presence among these long-established galactic civilizations was initially met with surprise and intrigue. The question many beings within the Galactic Council asked was, why was humanity, a relatively young and inexperienced species, granted such a prestigious position among more seasoned and advanced civilizations? The answer to this query was rooted in a long history of galactic interactions and the lessons learned from previous diplomatic blunders. The Council had developed a policy to protect emerging civilizations, granting them special status to encourage peaceful relations and avoid conflict. Earth's inclusion was seen as a hopeful sign, and it was expected that humanity, with their potential for growth and learning, would contribute in ways that even older species might not. In the beginning, Earth's leaders and citizens were both baffled and thrilled by the invitation. For many, it represented the fulfillment of humanity's long-held dreams of becoming part of a larger galactic community. However, despite the excitement, the immense responsibility of such a role weighed heavily on Earth's leadership. They wondered if humanity, with its still developing understanding of interstellar diplomacy, could truly navigate the complexities of galactic politics and coexist with such diverse and powerful species. The decision to grant humanity universal diplomatic immunity across the galaxy was rooted in a tragic incident from centuries earlier, long before humans entered the galactic stage. This event, known as the Arner Conflict, served as a stark reminder of the importance of protecting diplomats and ensuring that missteps in interspecies relations did not spiral into catastrophic consequences. The Arner species, like humanity, had once held the role of a rising power in the galaxy. They were industrious, ambitious, and eager to forge alliances across different star systems. However, the Arners, despite their advancements, were also known for their overconfidence and tendency to overstep boundaries. This tendency led to a catastrophic diplomatic error in 2150, when an Arner envoy committed a grave mistake on the planet Vicar 4. During a trade negotiation, the Arner diplomat insulted the sacred traditions of the ruling species of Vicar 4, a cultural blunder that sparked immediate outrage. The repercussions of this misstep were swift and brutal. The Arner diplomat was publicly executed by the Viscarians, an act that triggered a series of retaliatory events throughout the galaxy. In a matter of days, alliances crumbled, trade routes were severed, and multiple wars erupted across star systems. The peace that had once held the galaxy together was shattered, and it took decades to restore any semblance of stability. Even after the conflicts were resolved, the damage caused by the Arner's diplomatic failure was irreversible. The fallout from the Arner conflict became a cautionary tale that echoed throughout the Galactic Council's deliberations. It served as a reminder of the fragility of diplomacy and the critical importance of protecting those who represent their people in foreign lands. The incident also highlighted the potential dangers of cultural misunderstandings and how easily they could escalate into violence. The Council, having witnessed this disaster, implemented a universal policy to protect diplomats, especially those from newly emerged civilizations, to prevent another such catastrophe. This policy ultimately became the cornerstone of humanity's inclusion in the Galactic Council. The lessons learned from the Arner conflict shaped the framework for how the Council would approach future interspecies relations, especially when dealing with young and developing civilizations like Earth. The tragic end of the Arner species, who failed to adapt and learn from their mistakes, became a guiding principle for the protection of Earth's diplomats, ensuring that humanity would not suffer the same fate. Despite their relatively young and inexperienced status in the Galactic Council, humans quickly made an impression that defied expectations. Initially, Earth's diplomats were met with skepticism, as they had little history in galactic politics or interspecies relations. In the beginning, humanity's attempts at diplomacy were marked by a series of blunders, misunderstandings, and cultural faux pas that often resulted in chaos. Humans misinterpreted customs, mishandled protocols, and unintentionally offended alien dignitaries. However, what could have been a series of diplomatic disasters was transformed into a unique strength: humanity's ability to adapt, apologize, and learn from their mistakes. One particularly infamous example of this involved an Earth ambassador who accidentally insulted a reptilian species by offering them a handshake, a gesture that was considered a grave offense to the species. Instead of retaliating with anger or violence, the reptilian dignitaries were intrigued by the ambassador's earnest attempt to communicate. The ambassador, upon realizing the cultural misstep, offered a sincere apology and explained the misunderstanding. The way the ambassador handled the situation, with humility, grace, and a willingness to learn, turned what could have been a diplomatic disaster into an opportunity for connection. In a surprising twist, the aliens were so moved by the ambassador's efforts that the two species forged a trade alliance, despite the initial misunderstanding. This incident was one of many that showcased a key human trait: the ability to turn mistakes into moments of growth and reconciliation. Rather than being rigid and prideful, humanity demonstrated a rare ability to bridge divides between different species through empathy, understanding, and creative problem-solving. Humans' knack for improvisation, along with their unorthodox sense of humor, allowed them to navigate complex cultural landscapes and make meaningful connections where others might have failed. Their willingness to admit errors and their innovative methods of making amends became a model for how diplomacy could be approached in the galactic community. As humans continued to interact with other species, they demonstrated a distinct talent for serving as neutral mediators. Their imperfections, far from being seen as weaknesses, became their greatest asset in intergalactic diplomacy. By embracing their human nature, with all its flaws, misunderstandings, and adaptability, humanity began to carve out a niche as peacemakers. Their unique ability to bring together factions that seemed irreconcilable was invaluable to the Galactic Council, which began to recognize Earth as a species capable of resolving conflicts and forging connections between even the most hostile civilizations. The decision to grant humanity universal diplomatic immunity was rooted in this understanding. The Council saw that, although humans were not perfect, their imperfections allowed them to navigate interspecies relations in ways that others could not. Humanity's role as a living experiment in diplomacy and interspecies relations was born out of this ability to learn from their mistakes, foster connections, and mediate peace. It was this very imperfection that made humanity not only valuable, but indispensable to the peacekeeping efforts of the Galactic Council. The decision to grant all humans diplomatic immunity within Galactic Council space was a direct response to the lessons learned from the Arner conflict, a tragic event that had unfolded centuries earlier. The Arner species, once in a position similar to humans, had faced dire consequences after a diplomatic incident involving the insult of a sacred tradition on the planet Visker 4. The subsequent execution of an Arner diplomat sparked a chain reaction that led to the collapse of alliances, wars, and the severing of vital trade routes. By the time peace was restored, the damage was irreparable, and the Arner species never regained its former prominence. The lesson learned from this disaster was clear. Diplomats, no matter how inexperienced or flawed, needed protection from retaliation, especially in the case of cultural misunderstandings. This principle would become one of the guiding rules of the Galactic Council. When humanity joined the Galactic Council in 2374, its diplomats were inexperienced and often clumsy in their interactions with other species. Misunderstandings were inevitable, as human cultural norms were vastly different from those of the many species within the galaxy. However, humans demonstrated a unique ability to learn from their mistakes and to recover quickly from diplomatic blunders. Rather than seeing these mistakes as failures, humans viewed them as opportunities for growth, adaptation, and connection. This ability to bounce back from awkward situations became one of the defining traits of humanity, making them valuable assets to the Council. Recognizing the potential for diplomatic incidents to escalate and the vulnerability of humans in these situations, the Galactic Council extended the policy of universal diplomatic immunity to all humans, regardless of their status or role. This immunity ensured that humans could continue to act as diplomats, troubleshooters, and mediators without fear of violent retaliation or punishment for innocent cultural misunderstandings. It gave humans the freedom to make mistakes and learn from them, without the risk of severe consequences that might befall a diplomat from another species. The immunity was not unlimited, however. While minor diplomatic missteps, such as misunderstandings of customs or the misinterpretation of gestures, would not result in punishment, humans were still held accountable for major crimes. Acts of genocide, war crimes, or any direct violation of galactic law would still result in intervention and legal consequences. The Council made it clear that the immunity was not a free pass for reckless behavior. Rather, it was a tool to protect humans from the kinds of retaliatory actions that had escalated the Arner conflict. By providing this immunity, the Council sought to foster an environment where humans could engage in diplomatic missions, resolve conflicts, and bridge cultural divides without the constant fear of making an irrevocable mistake. The immunity allowed them to take risks, to enter volatile situations, and to mediate peace in ways that other species, bound by more rigid diplomatic protocols, could not. This immunity became a critical part of humanity's growing role in the galaxy, ensuring that humans could contribute to peace and diplomacy without the constant threat of retribution. Over time, humanity's reputation as effective, adaptable, and innovative diplomats grew, and their diplomatic immunity came to be seen as an essential mechanism for fostering peace, understanding, and collaboration across the galaxy. Despite the occasional controversy and skepticism, the policy was seen as a necessary safeguard for interspecies relations, allowing humanity to thrive and become the unlikely yet indispensable peacekeepers of the galaxy. Humanity's rapid evolution into respected mediators within the Galactic Council did not happen by accident. It was shaped by both their ability to make mistakes and learn from them, as well as their unique diplomatic style that combined charm, adaptability, and a healthy dose of humility. Initially, humans were seen as a relatively young and unrefined species, struggling to grasp the complexities of galactic diplomacy. Their culture, filled with improvisational problem-solving, humor, and a certain degree of unpredictability, often led to misunderstandings with more established species. But over time, these same qualities became what made humanity invaluable as diplomats. The Council recognized that while humans were prone to cultural faux pas, they possessed an extraordinary ability to bridge divides. often turning what could have been a diplomatic disaster into a breakthrough moment. An infamous example of this involved a human ambassador who, during a diplomatic visit to a reptilian species, inadvertently insulted them by offering a handshake, a gesture that was seen as an act of aggression by the aliens. Rather than retaliating, the reptilian species became intrigued by the ambassador's heartfelt attempt to apologize, which led to an unexpected trade alliance. This incident exemplified humanity's unique diplomatic skill, the ability to admit mistakes and connect with other species on a deeply personal level, even when the cultural gap seemed insurmountable. Such incidents were not rare. In fact, humanity's penchant for turning diplomatic blunders into moments of understanding earned them the reputation of being the galaxy's chaos diplomats. Instead of being punished for their mistakes, humans used them as stepping stones to forge stronger relationships and to promote greater peace and mutual understanding. These unorthodox approaches to diplomacy were seen as a refreshing change in a galaxy often governed by rigid protocols and entrenched hierarchies. Humans, in their imperfection, seem to embody a more relatable approach to resolving conflicts, an approach that valued growth, learning, and the willingness to confront differences. As their role expanded, humanity became known for their ability to mediate conflicts between even the most hostile species. Whether it was brokering peace treaties, helping to resolve trade disputes, or navigating delicate environmental issues, humans demonstrated an uncanny knack for creating space for dialogue and understanding. What made them so effective was their willingness to make mistakes, adapt, and learn from their experiences. This ability to turn their shortcomings into advantages was a hallmark of humanity's growing influence within the galactic community. Humanity's role as mediators also aligned with the Council's guiding philosophy, which emphasized peace, trade, and mutual respect. Humans embodied these principles by helping to resolve conflicts in ways that allowed for reconciliation without resorting to violence. Their ability to think on their feet, improvise solutions, and engage with diverse species on a personal level made them uniquely qualified to serve as neutral parties in negotiations. Despite their perceived shortcomings, humans were seen as being capable of achieving what many other species could not: true peace, even in the most complex and volatile situations. As humanity's reputation grew, so did their influence within the Galactic Council. Their presence was no longer just about maintaining peace. It was about shaping the future of intergalactic diplomacy. The Council began to see humans not as a liability, but as a critical asset, a species that, despite its imperfections, could navigate the complexities of galactic politics with an open heart and a willingness to learn. Over time, humanity's approach to diplomacy became a model for other species to follow, proving that true peace could be achieved through understanding, compromise, and sometimes a little bit of chaos. The decision to grant all humans universal diplomatic immunity within Galactic Council space was rooted in the lessons learned from the tragic Arner incident centuries earlier. While it was intended as a protective measure for humanity, ensuring that humans could continue their diplomatic missions without fear of violent repercussions, the immunity also raised complex questions about its potential for abuse. Over time, some species began to view the policy as a loophole that allowed humans to act recklessly without facing consequences for their actions. This led to growing skepticism and accusations that humans were exploiting their immunity for personal gain or political leverage. One of the first major controversies surrounding humanity's diplomatic immunity occurred during the Valor incident, when a human scientist named Dr. Elaine Marquez was accused of illegally harvesting bioluminescent fungi from the planet Valore Prime. The fungi were sacred to the native Valorian people and were crucial to their religious ceremonies, but they also had medical value as part of a breakthrough treatment for various galactic diseases. Dr. Marquez argued that her actions were motivated by a higher purpose, to save countless lives across the galaxy by using the fungi in her research. However, her critics, particularly the Valorians, saw her actions as a direct violation of their cultural and religious practices. The Valorian Council demanded immediate retribution, calling for Marquez to be put on trial and imprisoned for her transgressions. However, as a human, Marquez invoked her diplomatic immunity, citing the need for scientific progress in the face of galactic health challenges. The case quickly became a flashpoint for tensions within the Galactic Council, with some species accusing humanity of using their immunity to justify actions that undermined the sovereignty of other civilizations. The Valorians, in particular, felt their religious rights and cultural practices had been disrespected, leading to an intense standoff between the two sides. In an unprecedented move, the Galactic Council's mediators stepped in to resolve the conflict. Rather than allowing the situation to escalate into a diplomatic crisis, the Council brokered a compromise. Dr. Marquez would publicly apologize for her actions and dedicate a portion of her research profits to preserving the Valorian fungi. In exchange, the Valorians would be recognized as co-owners of the medical breakthrough, earning both royalties and galactic acclaim for their contribution to the research. This resolution was seen as a victory for humanity's diplomatic immunity, demonstrating that even in contentious situations, the policy allowed for peaceful compromises that avoided punitive measures. However, the incident raised a fundamental question. Was humanity's immunity a safeguard for peace, or was it a tool for exploitation? In the years that followed, similar cases began to surface, highlighting the tension between the benefits and drawbacks of the immunity policy. While humanity's ability to defuse potential conflicts through negotiation and compromise was seen as a strength, there were growing concerns that some individuals might take advantage of their immunity for personal gain. As the frequency of such incidents increased, the Galactic Council found itself at a crossroads. Should the immunity policy be revoked, or should it be reformed to prevent abuse? To address these concerns, the Galactic Council convened multiple hearings to examine the broader implications of universal diplomatic immunity. Human representatives, often led by skilled diplomats from the Universal Diplomatic Corps, defended the policy, arguing that humanity's unpredictable nature was, in fact, their greatest strength. They contended that it was this very unpredictability that allowed humans to find solutions in even the most complicated diplomatic scenarios. After all, humanity's mistakes often led to moments of connection, understanding, and compromise, which ultimately strengthened the fabric of the galaxy's diplomatic relations. In response to the growing concerns about abuse, the Galactic Council introduced new safeguards to prevent misuse of diplomatic immunity. While major crimes, such as genocide or acts of war, would still result in intervention and punishment, the immunity was maintained for lesser offenses, particularly those arising from cultural misunderstandings or diplomatic blunders. This allowed humanity to continue to operate freely within Council space, while ensuring that they would be held accountable for actions that could threaten galactic peace. Despite these reforms, the debate about the potential dangers of humanity's diplomatic immunity continued to simmer. Some species, particularly those who viewed the policy as preferential treatment for humans, continued to question its fairness. Others saw it as a necessary protection for a species that, despite its flaws, had proven invaluable in maintaining peace and fostering cooperation across the galaxy. The ongoing struggle to define the limits and responsibilities of humanity's immunity would become a central issue in galactic politics, shaping the future of interspecies diplomacy and challenging the notion of justice in a universe where alliances were constantly shifting. Ultimately, humanity's immunity became a symbol of both the promise and the peril of progress. While it allowed humans to navigate the complexities of intergalactic relations without fear of violent retribution, it also forced them to confront the limits of their actions and the consequences of their mistakes. In this delicate balance, humanity would have to prove that their immunity was not a privilege to be exploited, but a tool for fostering understanding, innovation, and lasting peace across the stars. Over time, humanity's presence in the Galactic Council grew from that of a curious newcomer to an indispensable force for peace. The early days of human diplomacy were marked by missteps and misunderstandings, but these often worked in humanity's favor. Their unorthodox approach, willingness to admit mistakes, and ability to adapt quickly made them uniquely suited to the role of peacemakers. What started as a series of accidental diplomatic blunders gradually transformed into a reputation for being highly effective mediators, capable of bridging divides between even the most hostile and disparate civilizations. The unique qualities of humanity that had initially caused so much confusion, such as their improvisational problem-solving, their humor, and their sometimes chaotic methods, began to be seen as assets rather than liabilities. One of the key factors that set humanity apart was their ability to turn moments of failure into opportunities for connection. Unlike many other species, who adhered strictly to protocol and placed great emphasis on formality, humans showed a remarkable capacity to learn from their mistakes and grow. This made them relatable in the eyes of other species, who often viewed humanity as an imperfect but well-intentioned civilization. An infamous example of this was a situation in which a human ambassador accidentally insulted a highly respected reptilian species during a diplomatic mission. The ambassador had offered a handshake, a gesture considered deeply offensive to the reptilian species. Instead of responding with violence or retaliating in kind, the aliens were intrigued by the ambassador's genuine remorse and willingness to explain the misunderstanding. This moment of awkwardness, rather than spiraling into conflict, led to a deepened understanding between the two species and eventually resulted in a valuable trade alliance. This incident became a defining example of how humans, despite their shortcomings, had a rare talent for de-escalating situations and fostering mutual respect. The Galactic Council, recognizing humanity's ability to mediate complex interspecies conflicts, began to look at Earth as an asset in fostering intergalactic cooperation. Humans were able to navigate situations where others might fail because they could empathize with all sides of an issue, even when cultural differences seemed insurmountable. As a result, humanity's role as neutral diplomats grew. They helped broker peace treaties between warring species, mediated trade agreements that were once thought impossible, and introduced their unique philosophy of learning through failure to other civilizations. While not every species was thrilled with the idea of humans having such a central role in galactic diplomacy, the results spoke for themselves. Even those who grumbled about humanity's preferential treatment acknowledged that their unconventional approach worked. Unlike other civilizations, who often relied on military might or strict legal frameworks, humans were able to solve conflicts through dialogue, compromise, and, most importantly, a willingness to embrace their mistakes. This approach, though imperfect, was effective in creating lasting peace in areas that had been mired in centuries of tension. In recognition of humanity's growing influence, the Galactic Council established the Universal Diplomatic Corps, a program dedicated to training humans in alien customs, conflict resolution, and cultural sensitivity. Graduates of this program, affectionately known as Chaos Ambassadors, became highly sought after throughout the galaxy. Their ability to navigate the complexities of interspecies relations, diffuse tensions, and foster understanding made them highly valued not just as diplomats, but as symbols of the Council's commitment to peace and cooperation. Humanity's journey to becoming galactic peacemakers was not without its challenges, however. As their influence grew, so did the tensions with species who felt threatened by the increasing role of humans in shaping galactic politics. Some factions, like the Thean Dominion, began to see humanity's rise as a direct challenge to their own power and influence. The Theans believed that humans were using their diplomatic immunity and strategic positioning to subtly shape political outcomes to their advantage. This perception, though largely unsubstantiated, created the seeds of discord among certain species, particularly those who had more militaristic or authoritarian tendencies. Despite these challenges, humanity's growing role as mediators underscored a fundamental truth. Progress often comes from understanding, forgiveness, and perhaps most importantly, a willingness to step into the unknown. Humanity's imperfections, rather than being a hindrance, made them the most relatable and human of all species within the Galactic Council. They were not the perfect diplomats or the most powerful military force, but they had something far more valuable: an ability to connect with others and create peace through compromise, even if it meant embracing the chaos of the moment. In the end, humanity's role as galactic peacemakers demonstrated the profound power of diplomacy rooted in empathy and understanding. As humanity's influence continued to grow, the galaxy began to see the value of their unique approach, an approach that was as unpredictable and messy as the species themselves, but ultimately one that could bring about lasting peace in a universe fraught with conflict. While the Galactic Council's decision to grant humanity universal diplomatic immunity seemed like a strategic move in fostering peace and innovation, it wasn't without its complications. Over time, several species began to view this immunity as a loophole that could be exploited. What had originally been seen as a necessary safeguard to protect human diplomats from potential retaliation for cultural misunderstandings began to raise questions about fairness and accountability. Some began to argue that the immunity shielded humans from the consequences of their actions, allowing them to engage in questionable activities without fear of reprisal. The most common accusations were that humans were using their immunity as a cover for illicit activities. Reports surfaced of humans allegedly smuggling rare and valuable goods, engaging in reckless behavior, or interfering in the political affairs of alien species under the guise of cultural exchange. These accusations were particularly concerning to the more law-abiding and militaristic species within the Council, who saw this as a potential risk to the stability of galactic order. They argued that the immunity was being abused, turning it from a safeguard for peace into a tool for exploitation. In response to growing concerns, the Galactic Council initiated several hearings to investigate the matter. Despite the mounting pressure, human representatives consistently presented arguments that seemed to charm or confound their critics. One of the most effective defenses was that humanity's unpredictability, something many had originally found frustrating, was, in fact, their greatest strength. Humans were often seen as chaotic and prone to mistakes, but their very nature allowed them to take risks, explore new ideas, and initiate peace efforts that more rigid species would never dare. It was this willingness to act, even when the outcome was uncertain, that made humans so valuable as diplomats. One particularly high-profile case, known as the Valore incident, brought the controversy over human immunity to a head. Dr. Elaine Marquez, a human scientist, was accused of illegally harvesting bioluminescent fungi sacred to the native Vorian people on the planet Valore Prime. The fungi were central to the Vorians' religious ceremonies, and their unauthorized collection caused a deep cultural rift. However, Dr. Marquez argued that her actions were motivated by a higher purpose. She was researching the fungi as a crucial component for a medical breakthrough that could save countless lives across the galaxy. Her defense sparked heated debate within the Council, as many believed her actions endangered the sovereignty of the Vorian people. The case escalated quickly, with the Valorian government demanding Dr. Marquez's immediate trial and punishment. Yet, human representatives invoked the diplomatic immunity granted to all humans, arguing that her scientific intentions justified her actions. The debate reached a boiling point as Valorian leaders insisted that their culture and sovereignty had been violated, while humanity argued that the greater good of saving lives across the galaxy should take precedence. The Galactic Council stepped in to mediate the crisis, proposing a unique solution to diffuse tensions. The compromise that followed saw Dr. Marquez publicly apologize for the offense, and in a move that was unprecedented, she agreed to dedicate a portion of her research profits to preserving the Vorian fungi. Additionally, the Valorians were offered co-ownership of the medical breakthrough, sharing in the royalties and earning galactic acclaim for their role in saving lives. This resolution was seen as a rare example of the potential of humanity's immunity to facilitate peace rather than create discord. While the Valorian government was still upset, the compromise allowed both sides to find common ground without resorting to punitive measures that could have escalated into further conflict. The Valore incident highlighted an important aspect of humanity's role in the Galactic Council. Their diplomatic immunity was not a free pass to act without consequences. Rather, it was a tool that allowed them to take risks, innovate, and act in ways that other species might avoid, all while minimizing the likelihood of conflict spiraling out of control. In this case, Humanity's ability to resolve the issue through negotiation and compromise prevented a potential crisis and underscored the value of the immunity as a tool for peace rather than exploitation. However, the incident also served as a reminder that the immunity was not without its limits. The Council reaffirmed that major crimes, such as acts of war or genocide, would still result in intervention. Humanity's immunity applied primarily to lesser offenses, like cultural misunderstandings or accidental violations of protocol, which were inevitable in the context of such a diverse and complex galaxy. This distinction was critical, as it allowed humanity to continue its role as mediators and peacemakers, but it also ensured that they could still be held accountable for their actions when necessary. As the years went on, these challenges continued to surface, but they also served to refine the Galactic Council's policies. The Universal Diplomatic Corps, which trained human diplomats in alien customs, conflict resolution, and cultural sensitivity, was constantly adapting to ensure that humanity's immunity was being used responsibly. In this way, humanity's role as peacemakers remained secure, though not without scrutiny. Their immunity, once seen as a privilege, evolved into a crucial tool for diplomacy, one that ensured humans could act boldly and creatively, while still being held accountable to the wider galactic community.